Hi, how's it going?
Hi, fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for taking time to do this interview.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry for the last time. I totally forgot I was busy with something else.
Oh, that's quite all right. I'm glad we're able to do it today and be able to talk about some brand new funeral coming out next week.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, far away.
Oh, definitely. But yeah, just a week from today, a brand new album from Funerals coming out. Being a longtime fan of the band, I was so honored to be able to get the album and be able to check this out and see where the band is in 2024. I love where the band is right now. I love the sound that's going on right now. I love how deep everything feels. I mean, it's so dark, but it's very cathartic. It just hits all the emotions that I look for in the band while being able to expand the sound into 2024. It just feels like everything's hitting in the right direction.
Thank you.
So, what was it like to start working on this album?
Oh well, I have this deep passion for for melancholic music and of course the music of funerals. So I always write riffs and songs. Um, this time around though. We had Sarita on violins, both classical violin and the Harding fiddle. And amazingly, I also got Eirik Krokfjord on vocals. So it sort of expanded our universe, so to speak. So I could sort of write, how should I put it, more in a more classical way, in a way. I've always been a fan of classical music, and all our albums reflects that in one way or another. But now we could take that step even further on, with bigger strings arrangements and you know piano flutes and organic, authentic instrumentation, and not depend on the programmed orchestration that we used previous. So it was a task. I worked very hard during the COVID lockdown, and I wrote about, I think, maybe 16 or 17 songs during a period of 2 3 years, and yeah, I picked out the right stuff for the record, I think.
Yeah, and I will say when the more that I listen to it from start to finish, it feels like these songs were meant to be together in this order. It feels like the track listing is so important when it comes to getting a full album experience,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
I just feel like
yeah.
this was done so perfectly this time around.
Absolutely, absolutely. As mentioned, I had a lot of songs, so I had to pick out the right songs for a full album. My view is to present a full album. It's a total experience, and I chose the songs because it, as you mentioned, they sort of grow together, and it goes full circle from the first song to the last song. And I used a lot of time on that.
Yeah, and that I'm so glad to hear that too. I mean, and again, writing this during lockdown as well too. Like it gives you a lot of time to think, and when
Yeah,
you can do something creatively to do that as well, and especially expose a lot of emotions and what you're feeling like during everything that's going on. When you can do something healthy, like being able to write music like this and being able to get those feelings out. I think it's such a positive thing when it comes out there, no matter how dark it gets. And I'm just glad to see the way the album turned out the way it is because I feel like it's one of the finest funeral albums to date. Like you mentioned before, I love the way that it feels so grandiose with the classical feel behind it between the vocals and the real strings and everything that's going on with it. It just feels one of the most authentic albums that you've done to date.
yeah. For me, it's definitely the pinnacle of my career. And for the first time, I really think we managed to mix both both the classical music inspiration and the heavy metal in a sort of a perfect way, especially regarding the operatic vocals from Eirik.
So, thinking about that, kind of going back to what we were talking about, but what was it like to get this new lineup for the album cycle?
Well, it's it's always a task getting competent and the right people into the band. We are I'm getting old, and finding competent and committed members. It's a task. Norway is a small country, and Oslo is even smaller, and there seem to be not that many into doom metal around here. So, and of course, grown-ups have their own private life, kids and education and work and blah blah blah. So, it was a task, and it's always a task. I sort of changed lineup on every album, but that is mainly because people tend to quit the band and focus on other things. Life gets in the way, sort of. So, but now I think we have a really, really steady, really, really competent lineup.
Yeah, I mean that's always the downside to being in a band. It's just like there are so many life commitments, work, family, e- growing in and out of music, whatever reasons there are for lineup changes, they do happen, and
Yeah,
unfortunately, it can happen frequently. But I just really do love the lineup on here. I mean,
yeah,
everyone that's on the record just feels like they're putting their heart and soul into this album, and it really does come through from the listener experience.
absolutely, absolutely. They did a marvelous job on this album. Everyone.
So, thinking about that, what was it like to be in the studio this time around and start recording this album?
It was. It took quite quite a longer time than previous albums, especially regarding the orchestration work. Because we have one person playing the violin, and on several parts there are like 30 30 violins together, and every voice had to be played manually. So it took quite a while. I think we used about half a year only on the orchestration alone. So it took a while, maybe a year and a half or something. But we have our own studio, so it's really really great working. Apart from the drums, they were recorded in a studio here in Oslo, but almost everything else was recorded in our own studios. So we didn't have a deadline, so to speak. We just used our time very wisely, and the label was happy with that. So we
And
didn't rush anything.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, with an album like this, I'm so glad that it wasn't rushed in any ways because I
Yeah,
feel like if it would have been rushed, I think it would have lost some of the charm and the overall spirits of the album. Like, you gotta let something like this be very organic, and however long it takes, that's just how long it's gonna take. I mean, it's
yeah,
all about the
exactly,
quality.
exactly. Yeah, it's all about quality, and that takes a while.
Oh, definitely. And again, when you're able to do it from your own studios and being able to work however you're doing it, I mean, that takes a lot of pressure off as well too. That way, you're
Yeah,
not, working against the clock, and like every hour that something gets delayed or something, that's going to add up and
yeah,
the overall price and stuff. So when you can take your time like this, like you really can focus in on those parts to make the album the best they can be.
yeah, absolutely. We had a pretty nice budget, but we also used the budget pretty wisely, on especially on the mix and the master end of the recording. And we used the same guy as on the previous album, Børge, at Top Room Studios. I really enjoy working with him, and he knows me and knows funeral and is a funeral fan. So I knew that he could bring the and get the sound that I wanted on this album as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate that so much when you're able to find the right people who enjoy what you do, want to be able to work towards the same goal, and be able
Yeah,
to put out the best quality product as well. And when
absolutely.
you find someone who can work on the mix and the master like that, especially with an album like this, which is so dense, but it's so clear at the same time, it's got this clarity behind all of it as well. Like when you focus on that and you got someone who wants to be able to showcase everything off of the album, it takes the right kind of person, and I'm glad you have that.
Yeah, and it took a while only mixing all of the instrumentation. As mentioned, there are on several parts up till 30 violins on one track. Plus, of course, all the guitars, bass, vocals, harmonies, drums, etc., etc. So it was a huge task. I think he used about a month on the mix alone.
So, what was it like when you first heard the final product back?
Well, that's sorry. That's always how should I put it? A bit strange because we have worked on pre-productions and poor demos. I always I write the vocal lines as well, and I cannot sing. So I've been working on the pre-productions with my singing on it, and I can't sing. So and finally getting this all of these ideas together in one well-sounding product is a kick. All right, it's definitely a kick.
Oh, I'm glad that you still have that feeling after all this time too. I mean,
Yeah,
especially with all the changes musically, lineup, labels, everything that's happened in the course of Funeral, that you still get a kick out of being able to hear like the final product off a new album, and it's still you can still look at it and be proud of everything that you're doing
yeah,
at this point, and you're still getting that joy out of it.
absolutely. And I know that uh, when I look back on previous albums, there are always things here and there that you regret, and you think that why didn't I do this and that, and that's also why we this time around used more time, to prevent that, and have the have the feeling that you have done it almost 100% right this time around. And I honestly can say that I think we managed that on this album.
So, thinking that about that a little bit deeper, I mean, obviously, getting so much enjoyment being able to listen back to the final product, and obviously working with Season of Mist to make sure that everything's going in the right direction for the promotion of the album, the release of the physical versions, and all that.
Yeah.
Like, how hard was it to be able to decide what singles were going to be off the album? Being able to decide what people were going to be able to hear first.
Yeah, that's a good question. I used quite a lot of time picking up picking out the single tracks, because I want the singles to, of course, give our audience a taste of the whole album. There are like I think 8 tracks on the album, and I didn't want to maybe release the. There are some, I would say, more or less. There are a couple of songs, maybe 10 minutes long. We might save that for the album, and give people a sort of a light taste of what's to come. So I picked up, yeah, mainly the second track, Yesteryear. I think it's the shortest song I've ever written. I think it's just under 6 minutes, to get maybe, and maybe, get other people into doom metal as well, not just the doom metal audience, but my goal with this album is to build bridges between the different genres, maybe get the classical audience to discover doom metal and vice versa. uh, so we'll see, we'll see what happens. It's not out yet, so
Yeah, I'll say for me, I think you picked some fine choices for the singles because like it does showcase where the band is at right now without giving everything away. I mean
yeah.
that requires the full album experience to be able to get everything that's going on there. But yeah, I was so curious about that as well too because I guess I really didn't put two and two together where I realized that Yesteryear was the shortest song in Funeral, and it just fits so perfectly amongst everything else on the album. Like
Yeah,
those kind of things, like I never really thought about until you mentioned it, but now that you did, it's like, yeah, you're right.
yeah, it's a sort of a, how should I put it, a breather in a way, not just a really long, epic, bombastic song. You know, I want the album to be a ride and not just downwards. You know, it has to it has to be a dynamic ride, so to speak. So, of course, it's down, but it's not only downwards.
Yeah, and, uh, but to me, being a long time Doom fan, like even if the trajectory is going downward, it still does lift me up at the same time because I get such a catharsis from Doom metal because it is so relatable in so many different ways. Even if you're not going through the exact same situation, whether the song is based on real life, whether it's just based off of real emotions, what if it's just a fiction narrative, whatever the case is, like if you can relate to it, it to me it has a great cathartic feel behind it, and I attach myself to those so much more. And that's what I've always gotten out of Doom. That's what I've always gotten out of Funeral, and
Yeah.
just seeing those dark emotions just continuing to go, and of course the authenticity behind all of it in 2024 is awesome to see.
Yeah, and that was, you know, all the lyrics too. I used a lot of time. You know, I also love writing. I call it text, not just song lyrics. I write text and I pick out parts from the text that sort of fits onto a song. And this time I only used, you know, autobiographical stories, so to speak. You know, it's everything on the album is totally personal. So we are not pretending. It's a authenticity, as you say.
Yes. And obviously, this isn't the first time that you've written songs that are based off of real life, but
No,
when you are writing things like this, when you get them finalized, like how does that feel for you personally when you're able to look back at those lyrics?
that's a bit. I think that can be pretty hard, actually. You know, because you know, when writing it, I'm into this pretty private mood, and it's pretty, you know, it's stories that fits the music and music that fits the stories. And it can be pretty hard playing and, you know, listening to it in retrospect. But of course, having Eirik to sing my lyrics is a blessing, all right, definitely.
Oh yeah, especially this time around. Like not to say that previous albums haven't done it, but on this particular album, it's just like his vocals just like strike such a chord with me, and it just like it just hits on another level with his vocal style and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
way he does his operatic vocals, and just like there's so much emotion behind it. It just no matter who you are, like I can't imagine sitting down with this and not feeling something when you hear it.
Yeah, that's cool that you say that, you know, because you know, for me, you know, writing it is a catharsis. Of course, you know, putting the difficult emotions onto paper and notes is, and of course that's a passion I told you about earlier. You know, it's you know, getting things out from the soul, so to speak. You know, and sharing it with the audience. It's great. I'm very thankful, you know, that people actually bothers listening to this.
And in speaking of that as well too, with being able to share with the audience, the fact that a funeral is playing shows and being able to, and soon after next week, really being able to promote the album. Like, what's it like to be able to pick out songs from the new album and incorporate them into the set list?
Well, we are playing the entire album.
Oh, you are
Uh,
doing the whole album.
yeah, we're playing the entire album
Oh, very
on the
cool.
on the release concert in Oslo, the November 29th, as well as some older songs. So we are rehearsing quite often now, you know, to get those songs ready, and with Espen, the guest singer as well. He sings on two of the songs, so he's also taking part of that. It's going to be cool. It's the first time we played an entire album live.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't realized that was actually happening. I'm so excited to hear that because all of these songs feel like they should be heard in a live setting in one way, shape, or
Definitely,
form,
yeah,
and I'm so glad that's
definitely.
happening.
I think this time around on this album, I want the whole album as an experience on its own, and not just a single song here and there. So that's why I chose that. I want to perform the entire album as an experience.
Yeah, so obviously, you did mention before you're also playing some other older songs to go along with that.
Yeah.
Like, how is it to incorporate that? Are you just like going with your favorite songs that you want to do, like audience, what they want to hear? Like, how do you go about that?
It's a mixture of the two. Obviously, we pick out songs that I know the audience like, and we pick out songs that we like. So it's really a mix of both, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a smart way to do it because you also want to be able to give the audience what they want, but you also want to be able to enjoy the songs that you're playing as
Yeah,
well too.
yeah,
And when you're able to match both of those perfectly, it makes for a better night.
absolutely, absolutely. That's the main goal on this concert.
Oh, that's so cool. And of course, as much audibly as I enjoy this album, I do love visually what's going on with it as well too. Like, I really do enjoy the album artwork so much. I feel like it fits the album perfectly. It is very striking. Where did that come from?
Oh, that come from the lyrics. The three nails in the skull on the cover. It's basically how should I put it, a symbol of what I write on the record. I write about losing my three best friends, for example, during a period of 7 years. Two guys from the bands, Einar in 2003 and Christian in 2006. So it's a symbol of what to expect on the lyric front, really, on the album artwork. And it's sort of an abstract skull. I didn't want to. Everybody uses skulls in a way, so I wanted it to be a bit abstract. You have to look at it for a while to see what it really is, I think.
Oh, yeah, and that's probably why I find it so striking as well too. Seeing the symbolism in the album cover and just seeing how it is just showcased there. Like you know what you're getting when you put this album on if you're just looking at it from the album cover. I'm also
Hopefully.
curious. Yeah, I'm also curious as well about like the color. I mean, obviously black's gonna be a part of that, but like the overall color of it. Like, how did you decide on that?
Um, you know, I've always been a fan of earth colors. Brown, green, gray, black, because I think it's the color of earth, it's the color of the soil, it's the color of a tomb. I think it's a color of funeral in a way. So I wanted to expand that, and you know, it's sort of a tradition with the artwork in the band. So it's a nod to the older graphic designs, as well as trying to make something that stands out in a way.
Oh, that totally makes sense, and I think it really does do that. I think
Yeah.
it pays tribute to the past, but also is something new and paves a new direction as well too. I think you
Yeah.
definitely nailed that.
Thanks.
So yeah, I mean, it seems like so many things are going in the right direction right now. I mean, you got the great lineup for the record, you got the live lineup that's going on as well too. Being able to play the new album in its entirety, which is so cool to see, and of course, the album coming out next Friday, which
Yeah.
is so cool to see. Like after the album release, I mean, I imagine there's not too much more that's happening for the rest of the year, but is anything happening in 2025 yet?
Yes, there are. There is. We are in talks of doing a smaller Norwegian tour. maybe four, five, six cities around in Norway. So we are in talks with different clubs. Maybe one of the gigs will be in December, but I think January would be the appropriate months for that endeavor. We still have no no real concrete plans of playing abroad yet, but hopefully that will change as well. We did one gig in Croatia here in August on a metal festival down there, and that was really cool with a great audience. So
So,
we have a management now that works very hard to get us into festivals, or especially around in Europe. So I think maybe 2025 will be our live year, so to speak.
oh, that makes me so happy to hear. Whether it is just doing more of Norway, whether you're expanding a little bit more into Europe, I just love the fact that the album and previous songs are going to be getting more of that live recognition, especially with the current lineup that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great lineup now, and as mentioned, very competent people and very committed. So we are well rehearsed, and it's a blast playing with all these committed people.
And how is that for you? Like, whether you're doing a club show, theater show, festival show, like, how is that for you when it comes to this style of music and being able to set everything up? Like, how are the differences for you?
I wouldn't say there are any differences really. We do our thing whether or not there are 50 people in the club or 500. I really don't care. What we play is authentic funeral music, and if you have bought the ticket, you will get the same show as on a bigger festival.
And I love hearing that so much because I know not every band feels that way, and I love hearing that from you that you do care that much to put on that authentic funeral experience, no
Yeah,
matter where you play, no matter what the stage is, no matter who's in the crowd.
absolutely. It's very important for me as absolutely.
Oh, awesome. Well, I think we covered so much ground here, and I thank you so very much for taking the time to be able to talk to me about everything that's going on in the world of funeral right now. So many things to look forward to. Of course, I'm so thankful I've been able to check out the album as much as I have. I can't wait to be able to show off this interview, be able to do my proper review of the album next week, and everything else that goes into it. And I just thank you so much for your time with all this. Before we wrap things up, is there anything else you'd like to mention that I hadn't brought up yet?
Yeah, I could mention that we have recorded an entirely acoustic version of the last song, Når kisten senkes, when the coffin lowers, with only strings and acoustic guitars and vocals. And the plan is to have that released maybe in December or January, I think, as a standalone single. And we are also working on another song as a standalone single later, which is an entirely different approach. I think it's like 15 or 16 minutes long. It's very different. It's an older song that I've sort of reworked in a way. So we have just recorded the guitars on that now. So this is getting mixed now in the near future for a future release.
And what is that like for you to be able to go back into the catalog and be able to pick out a song and do a revision of it?
Oh, that's really fun. I love doing that. And being a huge fan of classical and acoustic music as well, it's a blast, all right.
Oh, that is so cool. I'm looking forward to hearing both of those singles when they do get released. I mean, both of them are already kind of hitting me just from the way you're describing it, let alone hearing them and the way that they're going to turn out. So that's got me super excited for all of that. And again, thank you so very much for taking the time to do this, being able to promote the new album. One of my favorite Doom albums of the year, easily. I love
Thank
what's
you.
going on with this. I can't wait to show it off to everybody. And I thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, hopefully within the next couple hours, I should be able to have this available on YouTube, and then next week I'm doing a full-on album review. of the album as well too to help promote it the week of release and everything. And I'm super excited for all of this. And one last time, I thank you for taking the time to do this. It was a tremendous honor to be able to talk to you, and I hope you have a great rest of the night.
Great, you too, Val.
Oh, thank you. Bye bye.